And we're on.
Hey.
Hey, Cass, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Okay, so I'm here with Cass McCulloch. Is it the full name will be Cassandra, right?
No.
No.
No, the full name is Cassie Lee.
Okay, sorry, but okay, so you're not a Cassandra
I
at all?
am not, no, just Cassie.
Okay, I might pull that mic up a little bit closer to you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
That's right.
Yep, better?
Yep.
Okay, so, originally Cassie Lee.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, my parents decided they didn't double barrel it, but it's, not Cassandra.
Oh, okay. Interesting, because a lot of Casses that I know obviously would be, Cassandra would be the common one.
Yeah.
So, Cassie Lee.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, how I met you was, when would that have been? That would have been a few years ago now, when you got the X7?
Yes, I was, no, when Andrew got the 740.
Okay, yep.
And I was pregnant with Bronte.
That's right. That's right.
Before the bushfires.
Yeah, before the bushfires, and you were living down
In Barrel.
Yep. That's right. And so I always found you to be an interesting cat as well. And the reason why I say that is because, I found out that you were into interior design, and it's one of those things, like I always find when people are really, when they have like interesting professions, it obviously means that you the way you view the world is going to be a little bit different as well. I don't know if that's the right way to put it.
Yeah, but I didn't start out there.
Okay.
So I started in a very corporate job.
Okay.
I left school when I was 15.
Okay.
And my mum was back in Perth. We were moving from the coast to the country.
Okay.
And my mum's partner had bought 10 acres up there and decided, they wanted to be farmers. And I was not interested in being a farmer. So I said to my mum, they said, oh, you're going to go to a private school and you'll love it, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, that's not for me. And I was just really angry that they were taking me away from my friends.
Yeah.
Because we had this cool, like, Sandlot kids type thing going on. We all lived on the same street. We all used to hang out at each other's houses. And anyway, Mum said, well, what are you going to do? And just to be a smart ass, I said, I'm going to go to business school. I had no idea what business school was.
Wow. Okay.
I just had heard it.
Yep.
And she said, okay, well, find me the information. And so I did. And so I found this business college in the city that basically taught you how to be like an executive assistant, office manager type person.
Yep.
I did grooming and deportment. I learned how to fold letters into envelopes.
Wait, what's grooming and deportment?
Grooming and deportment is how to be a lady.
Oh, okay.
How to walk.
Is that the books on the head?
Yep.
Yep.
How to walk, how to dress, how to present yourself, how to sit, how to talk, how to eat.
And was this business school for ladies only?
Yes.
And that's why they covered those sort of aspects.
Yes, it was very much the old school way of training women for the corporate world.
Yep.
And so she said, she agreed. She said, okay, great, you can do that. And you know what? It was the best decision I ever made because in school I was very much, not really interested.
Yep.
And put in that environment, I excelled, high distinctions throughout all my classes.
Yep.
Walked out of there, qualified bookkeeper, and landed a job in a chartered accountancy.
Wow.
In West Perth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's wind it back a little bit more than that, right?
Yeah.
So I always like to kick it off at the very beginning in terms of what do you remember being your first memory when you were growing up?
Rolling down the hill in my flower girl dress at my mum and dad's wedding when I was almost 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a memory. That's a real solid memory to have.
Yeah, but did you know that when you recall a memory,
Yep.
and then someone asks you,
Yep.
when was your last memory, you only ever remember back to the last time that you told that memory.
You remember back to the last time
that you told someone.
Told someone that memory.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get further and further away from the memory.
Yep.
But you know it happened.
Yeah.
But you start to only really remember when you talk about it you know, the last time.
Yeah, it's a link, right?
Yeah.
Like, so mentally, you know, when you start talking about it, you go, oh, okay, so that's what you
Yeah,
remember.
but I remember telling people that was my first memory, and I do. I sort of have like little glimpses. I mean, as every year goes on, it's getting further and further away. But yeah, I remember because you know, everyone kept saying to me, "Don't do that. You can't do that." And I think my parents were getting married at the Mulberry Tree Farm or something like that in Perth in the hills.
Yep.
And yeah, well, I wasn't allowed to do it, but I did it anyway.
Yep.
So that, and also my cousin and I cut each other's hair just before the wedding.
Wow.
Our fringes, yeah.
And was that did it turn out okay, or?
Oh, I mean, look, we've all seen a child that's got this like little weird bit missing.
Yeah.
And you can sort of see in the photos.
Yep.
And it was the 80s, and we all had fringes. Yep. So yeah, I mean,
don't worry, that's me like every month. So you know, when I used to, because I actually cut my own hair.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So you do a good job.
Well, I've done it for 20 years now. But there's been some shockers along the way. Like I've done once where I've used the clippers and I've had like a triangle above my ear, like I was an elf, right? And so I cut my kids' hair as well. And you know, just speaking on that story, what it reminds me of is I was cutting my daughter's hair, and this is only just last year. So I was cutting it because it was summer and thinking, okay, she's going to go to school next year. And so the first thing I did, like her hair, I had cut it once before, and you know, I was like, okay, I'm just going to put it into a ponytail and I'm going to cut it to the length that I want first, and then we'll go from there. And so did that. That turned out okay, you know. But what I realized is as you cut along the ponytail, so I was going from right to left. The more left you go, the side on the left would be a little bit longer because obviously it's moving with the scissors. And so everything was okay. Then I started doing the layering thing. And then, but what happened, she was looking down, and when she was looking down, it made the left fringe look like it was really long. So I was like, ooh, I need to fix that up. So I've cut it. Then she's looked up, and now she's got one fringe here and one fringe down here. And I've gone, oh, okay.
So how do you fix that? She said she's got layered.
Yeah, right. Like, so, you know, I took a photo, and obviously I said to my wife, you know, there's been a bit of a mishap. Everyone's okay, but you know, it didn't turn out the way that I wanted.
Yeah.
And I probably should have left that part instead, just done the layering, and it would have been fine. But the funny thing was that so obviously to my daughter, I was like, oh, you know, do you like it? You know, it's different, right? And she's like, yeah. And I obviously, you know, got a very positive about it, right? And then when some of her other friends saw it, then they were like, oh, they really liked her hair. So two of our family friends, when their girls, when they saw Cadence's hair, they wanted short hair too. And so I was like, oh, that's nice. And then so I felt like, okay, it's not so bad. And actually she grew into it, and it looks really good now. Yeah. Right. But then at the time I was like, oh crap, what have I done? And then, you know, the other thing that happened, I guess, that made me sort of, you know, you don't realize, you know, what kids are like, because Cadence goes to like this dance class, right? And then at the dance class, she said that she doesn't like the girls. And I'm like, why? And then she said, they said I'm a boy. And I'm like, why? And they said, because my hair's short. And it's like, oh, okay. It's you know, but like you go to school with other girls and some of them have short hair too. And I was just trying to help her to understand that, hey, it may not be that you don't like girls as friends because of that one girl, but you don't mean to say that about all the girls. You just mean about that particular girl, right? Because that particular girl made you feel awkward about your hair. Yeah. Right. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean it's such a hard age too with little girls. Like, I mean, during the first round of lockdowns, Indy decided that she didn't want to be herself. That's Miss Six. Yep. So she's got a cowlick right in the center of her head, and so she cut herself a fringe, but it was at the cowlick. So rather than sitting to the side, it's stuck out like this. So we had to go through the first round of COVID, and thank God, because the poor kid would have been, you know, how do you talk around that one at school? But yeah, kids, like, you know, she's gone to school this time after the second round, and she's got a bob, and everyone's like, yeah, that's so cool. And now they've all got bobs, you know?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you see that in your own kids, like, does that bring you back to any part of your childhood at all? So I guess what was that like for you when you went to kindy and primary school and that?
Look, growing up for me, I was fairly shy, and I was bullied quite a bit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, actually, through my later years in primary school, I was pretty much only stuck to one person. And then coming into year 7, so year 7 is our final year of primary school in Western Australia.
Yep.
I think it's changed now though, but yeah, that was it. That was our final year. I somehow the it girls or the cool group, they knew that I had a crush on this boy, and they would do really mean things like write letters from him and say, well, I want to go out with you and meet me at the park. And there's one incident where they said, meet me at the park. And so I went and I was waiting and they were all in the bushes, and then they, calling out rude things to me and blah, blah, blah. And then I don't know what happened, but I think maybe I started to change and my face started to change as I was maturing. And then they decided they wanted to be friends with me, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I was brought in.
Yeah. So let's go back a bit, because so that was year 7, but when did it start? Like, did it start?
Probably about year 5.
Yep. And do you know why it started? Like, was there a particular reason or something happened, or?
I was always the tallest girl in the class.
Okay.
Tall girl, and I lived with my grandparents for most of my upbringing, and I don't know, I think maybe because I was just quiet, and I didn't really develop at the same speed as everybody else in terms of learning, not saying that I was behind or anything, but I think I struggled that much more. And I think when I was in primary school, we weren't aware, or we weren't as self-aware of bullying or kids learning at different rates. I had a year 7 teacher actually who said to me, every child is like a flower, but you just all bloom at different rates. He goes, eventually you're going to understand this.
Yeah.
I had a year 3 teacher who, she was awful. She said to everybody, all right, put your hand up if you can't tell time. And I still couldn't get an analog clock. So I put my hand up, and then she turned around and said, well, I'm not really sure why you wouldn't understand how to tell the time now, Cassie. Like, this is something that you should know. So I had some younger cousins go through the school, and in the end she got fired from school because she was a bit of a bully herself.
Yeah.
So, but I think it started around then, just being singled out for certain things, and then, it's monkey see, monkey do. Kids see a teacher do it.
Then it seems like it's open slather for everyone else.
Exactly. So I think it was, and I think about it now, like, because we weren't really so aware of bullying then, and this is the 90s, like we've changed, we've come around so much more. Yeah. It's just something you didn't talk about, you know. You go home, you say, oh, he's being mean to me or she's being mean to me, and my grandmother being, she had 6 kids and she did family daycare for 40 years, and she was married to a man from the Foreign Legion, and she just said, well, you just say you don't like it and you move on, and then nothing would happen, Yeah. Whereas now we take a lot more action and we take a lot more involvement. Had that have happened back then maybe it wouldn't have happened. But I also think that it's made me a lot more quite thick-skinned because of it. Yep. We're almost too aware of it now.
Yeah. And we've become almost like a hypochondriac.
Exactly.
It's what's happening, it makes us nervous.
Yeah, it really does. So I'm not saying that it was a terrible situation for me, but, now what I know today and having children myself, there was a lot of bullying. We just didn't really have a label for it.
Yeah, that's right. So when you got taken into this group, were you suddenly like, oh, I'm the shit now?
Yeah.
Did it make you feel like that? Yeah,
it really did. It really did. And I was like, oh, finally, I'm in with the cool group. But what sucked at the end of the year is that they all went to the same high school together, and I moved back in with my mum, and we moved to a different area. So I had to start school on my own, not knowing anybody. Yep. And then something happened. So I used to be a part of the school choir in primary school, and I used to sing a lot. And I did my first solo performance singing in front of 1,500 people when I was 7 years old, sang Amazing Grace in a town hall in Kalgoorlie. And so singing was my thing. Yep. And then for a few years, towards the end of primary school, we used to do Perth Concert Hall, and there was a number of schools that we would all participate in doing this ginormous choir, and it was awesome. So when I got to this new high school, there was a group of kids there that I'd sung with at these concerts from this school. And they had called me the mouth girl.
The mouth girl.
Because when I sung, I really opened my mouth because that's how my singing teacher taught me to. Yeah. So I couldn't get away. I had gone from being the shit to now being
mouth girl.
The goober. Again. And I was like, fuck, how did I get here again?
Yeah.
But, it didn't last long. And then unfortunately, girls being girls, there was one person that knew one person from the other high school, and then it's just high school is such a tricky thing. As a girl, as a teenager, it's rough.
Yeah.
Girls are bitches. They can be so awful. And like as a mother of 3 girls,
You're not looking forward to it.
No, I mean I have a 13-year-old.
Yeah. It's funny, it's like I was talking to one of my high school friends, so her name's Mish, and she was a girl that, we used to talk a lot on the phone in high school.
Yeah.
Because back then, we didn't really have the internet back then, so it was always like, you talk on the phone and you hog the phone.
For hours. Yeah. And it was a record thing, like we were on the phone until midnight last night and, what would we talk about?
Yeah, you just talk about random stuff, right? And so, I used to talk to Mish a lot, and then, I reached out to her probably a few months ago because like I had a dream and she was in it. And I thought, I better reach out and just make sure she's okay and blah, blah. And then it was funny because like when we were talking, she was like, I remember, I don't really remember like the context of our conversations, but it's brought back a lot of memories. And like my daughter's at that age now where, when you and I used to talk, it'll be like a very similar thing to what she's going through. And so it was like just brought back a lot of like memories in that regard. And so, now she's from the motherly perspective as opposed to the person that's going through it.
Oh, I know. And it's so hard.
Yeah.
Because you know how they're feeling, but you can't even put it into words. And you it's not that you're being dismissive, but you do say, and I hear myself saying it all the time, this is nothing.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You just don't give it any airtime.
Yep.
And I think this comes back to me growing up and becoming more thick-skinned because I am. Like I just go, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'll stand up for, something that I do really think is not right with the kids. But a lot of this, it's just playground rubbish.
It's experience, right?
Yeah. And, girls develop or they mature emotionally a lot quicker than boys do. So what I noticed is around the age of 6, that's when the pecking order starts in the playground. And with Isabel going through primary school, I was like, she comes home from school and this girl's said this to her and it's mean and blah, 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 blah. And the teachers never really seem to give a shit. And I was like, why don't you care about this? And they'd be like, oh, well, it's because, it's fine. It's just what girls do.
Yeah.
Having Indigo now hit 6, it's just what girls do.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't matter what grade.
No, they just start at this age and it's just they learn how to pop their hips and they learn how to speak with attitude and you just got to roll with it. You really do. So I do think that though when I was at school we were sheltered a lot more in the sense that we didn't have Netflix or YouTube or any of that, and I think a lot of our stuff we just had to learn it as we went.
Yep.
Whereas kids now, they see it.
Yeah.
So they take that to the playground.
Yeah. And if you have a mobile phone, like you have access to almost everything, right?
Oh, it's scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary. Thank God we didn't have mobile phones in high school. Like I'm pretty sure I remember I got my first phone at 15 and it was like this tiny little Samsung thing and you couldn't send emojis and,
Yeah. Well, Snake was the hot thing if you had a Nokia.
Yeah. So. That's
this
right.
brick phone that everybody wanted to play Snake on.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, once the settling of getting into high school happened, I think the first term was a bit like still finding who our mates were and everything like that. But then I settled pretty quickly, but then I got over it pretty quickly.
And that was just because you didn't like the academics or what was it?
Look, I'm not very... No, it was because of the academic side of things. I'm not interested in learning maths or science or anything. English was my thing. Art was my thing.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, social studies even I did okay. Phys ed, no, you forget about it. I was the girl that always had her period every time it was a phys ed class. I just was not interested, hated it.
Yep.
But yeah.
But you're the tall girl as well. Like, it would
I
be good
know.
for sport, right?
But you know what? I'm the most uncoordinated person you'll ever meet. I've broken nearly every single one of my fingers.
Oh.
Yeah. Just and just through normal just life. Like, I think the first time I broke my fingers was when I was I was in year 3, so I was 8 or 9, and my cousin and I, my cousin's like my closest thing I have to a sister, we were in some country town visiting our great-grandparents. It was their 60th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
And there was this cute boy staying in the motel next to us, and we were leaping around like giggly girls, because we were, in the car park yelling his name. And my cousin, much more coordinated, could leap and land on her feet. Me, absolutely uncoordinated, leapt, and I don't even know how I did it, but snapped all my snapped all my fingers backwards. And, you know, my uncle, being the country boy that he is, he grabbed my hand, looked at it and just sort of said, "Oh, no, she'll be right." The next day it was swollen from my elbow to my fingertips, and had to go to hospital. I had 3 surgeries and learn how to write with my left hand. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. Like, sport, just not my thing.
Yeah.
But I think one of the best things about that school, and I guess the where we lived, my mum worked a lot of late hours, and her partner at the time, he did fly in, fly out. And we became the kids on our street. It was quite a big street. We just became our own family. We all had a few issues, and I came from a broken family, and mum had quite boyfriends that I didn't agree with, and we didn't get along, and it was, in the end, I moved out quite young because it was just didn't go well. Too difficult. Very, very much so. So my friends became my family, and you know, mum at 15, I had a midnight curfew. I mean, there's no way in the world that I would let my children have a midnight curfew, but you know, we all lived on the back of sand dunes, and we would all go to each other's houses. We were safe.
Yep.
We were always safe.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the time I got to 15, I decided that it wasn't for me anymore. There was too many politics.
Yep.
Schoolyards are tough.
Yep.
You know, just the other day, actually, someone said to me, "Girls who say, 'I'll bash you,' has big Centrelink vibes." And that took me right back to my high school days of hearing girls say, "I'll bash you." That was the best. And I had to laugh. And you know what the best thing is? Because at the time when you hear that, you're shitting yourself. Yeah. She's going to bash me. Yeah. And I'm not, like, I hate confrontation. Yeah. Well, I used to. I'm better at it now. Yeah. But yeah, when I read that, I couldn't stop laughing. And the best part was, it was about someone in Perth, and I just thought, Perth, like, it's 2022.
Yeah, it's still the same.
We don't say that anymore. Like, no, you just move on with your life. But you get it, right? Because I'm pretty sure it was, you know, a universal phrase. Yeah, that's right. I'll bash you.
Yeah, like when a girl's saying it, you got to be pretty rough. Like,
oh, so rough, so rough. Yeah, that school was rough. Yeah. It was, you know, Craigie Senior High School. Like, I've still got some great mates from there, but you know, I'm pretty sure they knocked it down, and it's Housing Commission now. Yeah, okay. It was not the best place. Yeah. And it was in the 90s, you know, back when you had your rappers and your surfers, and there was like a war, and there was border wars, you know, Craigie versus Callaroo, and I lived in Callaroo, which was on the beach side, and then the Craigie, and heaven forbid you date a boy from the other side, which I did, and all my mates from the beach side were like, you can't do that.
It all changed when Jay-Z and Linkin Park did the collaboration, right? Like, that was when it all changed.
Yes. I think I shared a meme about that the other day, actually. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, look, you know, that was actually a great album, right? Yeah. It was just one of those things that, you know, if you grew up in that era and you know what we're talking about. Yeah. Like, at the time, you know, it was almost like two different groups, two different worlds. Yeah. And then it collided, and then everybody was like, whoa.
Yeah. We can be mates.
We can be friends, yeah.
We can be friends. And And then I think that's just when it all happened. Like everyone became mates.
Yeah. Yeah. So can I ask about this? So when you were living with your grandparents, what was that like for you? Like,
so my mum was pretty young when she had me. She was 19. She just turned 20.
Yep.
And she had known my dad for very long. And my mum is one of 6 and my dad is one of 6. So my grandparents migrated out to Australia when mum was 15 or 16, 16.
So where were they from originally?
So Papa is from France and my grandmother is from England.
Okay.
And their Papa was in the French Foreign Legion, so they travelled around a lot. They lived in South Africa, and anyway, they were given the opportunity or the options to either move to Canada or Australia. So they decided to come to Australia, and they were in Brisbane first, and then hopped over to Perth. My grandfather, he had a freight lining business. That's how Mum and Dad met, because my dad was a truck driver. So look, my parents, being young, they were on and off, and it was pretty tough. And because I was only, I don't know, maybe 12 years between myself and my youngest uncle, my grandmother just kind of stepped in and said, she's going to stay with us.
Yep.
You know, it was just easier. And you know, we moved to the country, we moved to Kalgoorlie, and Mum and Dad kept splitting up and getting back together, and in the end Nanny just said, nope, this is not a stable life for Cassie. She can come and live with us. And they had a beautiful house right by the new school that I was going to, and I'd actually been to that school in preschool, or I think we call it kindy, which is like first, just before year 1. So I kind of knew some of the kids there, and then I went away to Kalgoorlie for a couple of years and then came back. But I mean, living with them, it was awesome. Like Nanny did family daycare, so I'm an only child, and so I never felt lonely because I had loads of kids around me and loads of cousins, and Nanny always looked after other kids. And I mean, because I was the eldest, I don't know, I think my grandmother is very much the person who has shaped me to be the strong woman that I am today. And she just had her 80th birthday actually, so she's awesome. She's like, how do I describe her? Nanny, when she was married to my grandfather, was very prim and proper and quite polished and posh, and never swore or never did anything. And then Nanny and Papa divorced, and she became Patsy from Absolutely Fabulous. Like Nanny, she's this woman who she's just outrageous, but lots of fun. The person that she always was. She's just hiding, you know. But living with my grandparents, I mean, while they were together, it was great. It was fun. And my grandfather, he was my favourite. They both were. I mean, but I think for him and I, we had a really close relationship.
Yeah. I can feel there's like you got a lot of gratitude in yourself for what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, but for me, when it's family, like that's just what you do. You know, it's what's one more child when you've got so many already, you know, like it just, I don't know, in our family especially, you know, and I've been very lucky that all my aunties and uncles have had me at some point in my growing up. It's not to say that my parents couldn't do it. It's just that they were young and they were on their own journey and they were just trying to sort out their stuff. And I have always maintained that I'm okay. So as a kid, I was like, it's fine. So it all hit me many years later.
We'll get into that.
But, you know, at the time, I was okay. So.
Okay. So then when you went to then live with your mum, was that difficult for you?
In high school?
Yeah.
Well, Mum and Dad had sort of been toing and froing about getting back together or not getting back together. So they finally divorced when I was about 9. And that was another thing that happened at school. I went to a public school, but it was like a secret religious school. It was secretly Christian or Catholic or I don't know. We did super club at lunchtimes, which was basically Bible study.
Okay.
And they told you, you know, oh no, it's fun. You just learn a bit about Jesus and blah blah blah. And but my parents were the first parents to get divorced. And my teacher I think I can see now that she was trying to do the right thing by explaining to the classmates that something was going on in my private life. But she made me stand up and say, I just want to let everybody know that Cassie's parents are getting divorced. And
wow.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yes. It's like you just...
they love singling you out.
Maybe it's just because I was setting trends. I don't know. It was just like, can you just imagine doing that now? I mean, who cares now? Everybody, like, it just happens.
It's a factor of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a big thing.
Yeah.
Everybody talked about it. Then it just set off this, like, then I can't help but feel, and maybe this is exaggerated because obviously my memories are of being a kid, then everyone was getting divorced.
Yeah.
My grandparents, my auntie, my friends, like, it was just like everybody did.
Yeah.
You know, it was... Wow. Okay. This is the thing
like,
now.
Is it me?
Yeah. But, you know, kids were really interested. So who do you live with?
Yeah.
When do you see your dad? When do you see your mum? What do you mean you live with you? Like, most people knew that I lived with my grandparents. Like, that was just, yeah. But at one point, mum and dad had separated. Nanny and papa had separated. And my auntie and her husband had separated. And we were all living in the same house.
Wow. Was that awkward?
Yeah, because they would all go clubbing together. My grandmother, my mum, and my auntie. My grandmother she was only 40, if not maybe younger, when I was born. So yeah.
Wow.
There used to be this nightclub in Northbridge called the Post Office, and they used to do over 30s nights, and the three of them would go out clubbing, and I would stay home as a 12-year-old and look after my cousin. This is wild. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't awkward, but it was very much a stage of my life where men were the enemy.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's get back to the business school thing. So,
yeah.
Do you find that going to a business school like that was probably a really good thing for you because
Absolutely.
you hadn't really had that structure, growing up?
The best thing about it was that there was no distractions. An all-girls school was the perfect environment for me. And it's not because when I was in high school I was boy mad, but I will, there were times where, you'd start going to parties on a Friday and we were starting underage drinking and, you'd snog someone that you didn't really want to, and then it was all the gossip on Monday and I was like, this is spiraling out of control. And, and just for the record, in case my husband listened, there's only 2 boys that I kissed in high school. So there we go. But going to an all-girls college, like, we were all on the same level, We had a restriction around what we were allowed to wear. Our skirts couldn't come up to a certain height. We weren't allowed to wear straps that were less than 5 centimeters. It was very even, It was
Uniform
good.
was the same.
Yeah, it was the same, and I really liked that. And also the mixture of ages. We weren't all the same age. So that was good. I was the youngest and most of my friends were 18, 19, 20, 21.
Wow. So,
which was cool. I kind of got to the age of 15 and then looked the same for the next 10 years.
Yeah. I
had a passport that was a girlfriend of mine who said 26 and I used that to go clubbing. I literally looked the same. So no one ever treated me like I was the baby or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I also think that the difference in the environment of the public school versus this business college is that, we were a small school and we had an individual teacher for every individual subject.
Yeah.
And that teacher is being paid rather well to teach you.
Yep.
Whereas the teachers I had at school couldn't give 2 shits.
Yeah. You're just a number.
Yep.
In a system.
Yep.
This is their job and that's how they treat it.
And they're paid poorly and they don't care.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you one teacher during my public high school days. I don't even remember their names. None of them.
Yeah, so they obviously made a great impact.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I've never even thought about that until this minute, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
And then business college, I really wanted to do well there. But I think it was mostly because I was in the environment that I could do well.
And I think it's also that you've chosen to do this, right?
Yeah.
So because the business school wasn't where your mum was living, right? So where were you living at that point in time?
They were living up in Brigadoon, and so I moved back in with my grandmother.
Okay.
And because she lived closer to the city.
Yep. And then so you just commuted in and out every day.
Yeah.
So how long did you have to attend that school for?
I did that for a year.
Yep.
And then from there, we put our own resumes together, and then basically they would send it off to a number of businesses in the CBD and, you know, see how we went. And I managed to get an interview for just an office assistant role, which my first job, I was earning $220 a week, and I had to pay $100 a week board to my grandmother. And I still managed to go out Friday to Sunday on the remainder and have a new outfit. I don't know how.
Wow. Money just went further.
Yeah.
I remember, so when I started as an apprentice, it's funny because you tell apprentices about it. And when I was an apprentice, everyone says the same thing, because so when I was an apprentice, as a first year apprentice, under 21 years of age, I was making $4 something an hour, right? And so it's like peanuts, right?
Yeah.
And then you tell that to an apprentice nowadays, and like I think an apprentice nowadays is on like $8 or $9, or could even be more than that, right? Like it's significantly more. It's like, you know.
But they don't care.
Yeah, and then but they're making the same complaints, right? Because it's like inflation, I guess, and everything's gone up in price, so it's not really a fair comparison. But when I was an apprentice, you'd say that to someone who was qualified, and they'd be like, "When I was an apprentice, I was making like $1 an hour." It just never ends, right? Because everybody just has this one-upmanship to go and say, "Oh, look."
I think I said something similar about fuel the other day. I remember when petrol used to be 55 cents a litre.
Everyone was hitting the roof when it was hitting $1 a litre.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what it is at now. I just close my eyes and tap a card. But that money just seemed to stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how. Like,
oh, it's good.
The more you make, the more you spend, though.
Yeah, true. So what was your experience like in that first job as an office assistant? Because you would only been 16 then.
Yeah.
Right.
Look, I had a great group of women that I worked with.
Okay.
The partners were awful. Yeah, but each partner had their own EA, and the two EAs were amazing. And they were kind of role models. You know, they took me in. Like, so Gina was the elder of the two, and Joanne is the one who gave me the fake ID. So it was good. And actually, you know what? They probably taught me a lot about habits. Drinking vodka out of a coffee cup at 2:00 on a Tuesday afternoon from my desk, types of habits. We used to go out all the time. It was great. I you know what? I had a ball.
Yeah.
But I was so lucky to have more, you know, older women in my life to help me on my path, because I think for a long time I was a little bit of a lost soul, and you know, being an only child, I was just always had, you know, on my own.
Yeah, you need. It's hard to find role models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for a long time I was looking for them. You know, who's gonna help me here, or, and you know, I did the usual silly teenage stuff where you get too drunk on a weekend and you make poor choices, and then I'd be at work on a Monday and Gina would know straight away, and she was amazing. You know, she would always have a way of making me feel better, and I'm really thankful that I worked there for that couple of years, because they became family.
Yeah.
So from the office assistant, I got a promotion to receptionist.
Yep.
Yep. Director of First Impressions. That was me. And then I started to get not a little bit bored, but, you know, it was boring. And then Joanne, her best mate, Jasmine, was an HR manager for a mining company, gold mining company. So I was working down in the CBD, and then all the gold mining companies and everything were up in West Perth, and I'd been out drinking with Jazz, and we'd all had a great night, blah, blah, blah. And Jazz was like, you know, I'm looking for someone to help me and also be a receptionist at my office, come in for an interview. So I did, and it went really well. And I mean, I got a pay rise. I got a job offer. I was getting 17 grand for a year, and I was like, this is amazing. I'm going to make so much money.
Yep.
And so I went and worked for St. Barbara Gold Mines. Now, St. Barbara Gold Mines used to be owned by Alan Bond.
Okay.
And when he owned it, I think you know who Alan Bond is. When he owned it, apparently he just liked lots of trucks and toys and everything. So it was in a bad way when I came to join, but I didn't care. I was like, I'm in West Perth and it's so nice. And anyway, so we had a new CEO, and he was pretty cool. everyone seemed really nice. And Jazz, being the HR manager, she kind of took me under her wing, and I started to get more involved in human resources, and that's when I decided I was going to start studying HR.
Yep.
So I moved from a receptionist to HR officer.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed dealing with people.
Yep.
It was great. I loved it.
So what course did you do for your HR qualification?
So I went through Edith Cowan University and did a postgrad, and I had to do a bridging course for year 11 and 12.
Yep.
And so then I ended up with business management and human resources. So it was good.
What do you think? So, and I always like asking questions like this. So what you learnt about HR versus actually doing HR, was there much of a crossover, or do you find like it's like a lot of ideology versus what happens in reality? Or
HR can be broken down into two paths: recruitment and human resources. Human resources is policies and procedures. It's actually quite boring. Recruitment is the fun part where you get to meet and hire and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people put them together. You got to speak to HR. Well, that's not an HR problem. That's a recruitment problem. That's a managerial problem. You've got to speak to your people, And also working for a mining company, like HR is up there with health and safety officer. No one really wants you there.
Yep.
They don't.
Yep. You're
just the red tape. But when I was that age, I was like, oh, this is fun and I like it and I feel important, and, I really enjoyed writing policies.
Yep.
Which is weird. I don't know, like it's something.
I guess you liked English, right? So
yeah, but I liked putting them together, and putting contracts together. I enjoyed doing all of that, and it was fun. And I continued on that path for quite a while. And I really only changed over to design 6 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So. But you didn't spend all the time at the gold mine there, right?
No. So St. Barbara was doing okay, but not great. And then I went through experiencing a hostile takeover, which, that was great.
So what happened?
Well, I don't know if I should be saying this, but there was lots of shredding.
Okay.
And the forensic accountants came in.
Yep.
The CEO went out, and we had a new CEO who was South African.
Everybody stops shredding. Was it like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, close. I mean, we had not paid any bills for a long time. One time, some of our creditors came to reception with a baseball bat. I'm like, oh, I knew this would happen one day. And so they opened the door and they're like, is the CFO here? And I was like, no. And they're like, we know you're lying. And I was very good. I was like, he's not here. I'm sorry. He's not available. And then I rang Brad and I was like, there are men with a baseball bat here. And he's like, I'm not here. I'm like, no, I know this. It's okay. Just put my life at risk.
Yeah.
They left eventually, and then Brad came up laughing. I was like, this is not okay.
Well, so he was just laughing about it?
Yeah. It was that bad. Like, there was no money.
Yep.
It was gone.
Oh,
there was just no money. Surprisingly, we would have to keep getting borrow money to pay wages.
Yeah.
That's what was happening.
I'm surprised people would keep lending the money, right?
Well, no one got made redundant. Not really. I mean, we were skeleton staff in Perth, but the mines, there wasn't many people up on site. But and then when the takeover happened, we had a tenement, which like a holding of land that was in the exploration stage, and they'd managed to find quite a decent amount of gold.
Yep.
So they broke away and became a different mining company. And they asked me if I would come and join them, which was basically my life being saved because the ship was sinking.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was great. That was good fun. During all of this, I had that. This is how I met my eldest daughter's dad.
Okay.
So from the recruitment side of things, we were working together, and he was working on site and I was in the office.
Yep.
So eventually that's what brought me to Sydney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
was he a FIFO worker?
yeah. Well, he was in the exploration camp, so he would be away for 3 weeks and home for 1. But he's originally from Sydney. So one day he decided he was going travelling around the world, and I knew that he'd been because he was from Sydney. I was like, oh, okay. Well, maybe I might go and check out Sydney. And I was about 18. I think I was 18 or 19. And so I booked a trip with my girlfriends. We went to Sydney and Melbourne, a week in each, and I got off the plane in Sydney and I fell in love.
Yep.
Like, it was instant.
Yeah.
Melbourne, not so much.
Well, and why would you say that? What was it about Melbourne?
Such a shit drive from the airport to the city, isn't it? Like, you get off the plane in Sydney and you're in the back of Redfern, and it's just like, whoa. Like, I don't know if you've been to Perth, but Perth has got, well, it had one street in the CBD, and then it's, so spread out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just loved Sydney. Like, I loved the buzz.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
Well, I think every city has a bit of a vibe, right?
It was one of those cities that it didn't stop.
Yep.
After 7 o'clock in Perth, that's it.
Yeah.
You don't walk through the city like then. It was just too scary.
Yeah. Well, it didn't stop until COVID came.
Yeah. Well, this is true.
Yeah.
This is true. Then it was like being back in Perth again.
Yeah.
So I knew after that trip, I came back to Perth and I went,
you got to get out.
I've got to go.
Yeah.
This is a thing for women in Perth that hit about 18, 19, 20.
Yep.
They all leave. So then there's a woman shortage between the ages of 20 and 30 because everyone's gone overseas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realise this.
Yeah. Yeah, because we get bored.
There's not much happening.
No, I did come back. Come back for a couple of years. But, yeah, so I went over to Sydney, and while I came back and went and sat down in my CFO's office at New Star Mining, the one that I'd been at, they took me away, and I said, look, I've decided I'm moving to Sydney. And he put his head in his hands and he goes, why? Why are you leaving me? And I said, because I'm ready. And he goes, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I said, what? And he goes, you're following him. And I was like, no, I'm not following him. He wasn't there. He was gone overseas.
Yeah.
It was over. And so I was like, I've got to do it. And he goes, okay, fair enough, all right. So I was pretty heartbroken to leave them because I'd grown, by that time I'd been working with them from 17, 18, 19, almost 20, 4 years. And again, that 4 years, like I feel like from the age of 12 to 25, you reinvent yourself and change so much.
Yep.
Like who I am now I am definitely not the same person at 25.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or at 15, or like you change so much. So I think these people all played such an important part of my life. And I had the EA from the first gold mining company. She came across to the new one, and she became another mentor for me, another role model, and she was amazing.
Yep.
So I was heartbroken to leave them. They were my family. Again, I had clung to these people like my family.
Your peers became your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And but I mean, they knew it was exciting, and that's what you should do if you want to go. And wish me all the well. They bought me the most beautiful gold necklace, fitting being gold mining company, and I still wear it to this day. And every time I put it on, I always think about them.
Yeah,
just good memories.
Yeah. So then, what was the plan in your head that you were just gonna jump on a flight, go to Sydney? Where were you gonna live? What were you gonna do? Like, how do you, when you made this decision, like how far had you really planned it?
Look, not a great deal far. So in between all of this time at these jobs and everything, I'd moved around a bit. Personally, I'd gone back to mum's, and that didn't work out so well. So then my dad had moved on to a property not far, and so I moved in with my dad, which I hadn't lived with my dad since I was about 8 years old. Yep. And you know what? He and I had the best time. It was so good. I loved living with my dad, and I'd finally talked to my dad. Unfortunately, my dog growing up, he had to be put down a few years before this, and so I'd finally talked Dad into getting another dog, and then I decided I was moving to Sydney.
Lumped in with it.
He was like, I knew you would do this. So, you know, it was hard leaving him, but my plan was I had a little bit of savings. I managed to sell my car and I was just going to go. I had some interviews lined up with temping agencies.
Yep.
I was living out of I'd gone to the backpackers that I'd stayed in when I came to visit on holiday, and I'd booked out a share room for 3 weeks or 4 weeks
to try and find.
And then I thought, and then I'll just go into a share house, and that was my plan. And this was before you had maps on your phone.
Yep.
So my parting gift from my mum, she bought me I don't know what you call the Eastern States equivalent, but in WA we call it the UBD.
Yeah, the UBD Street Directory.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing. Yep.
Okay. So there I was. I'd just done the red eye to my backpackers, got into my share room. It was 6 bunks, all blokes. I was like, oh, okay, this is not going to be fun.
Yep.
Anyway, shared bathroom, gross. And got my UBD out, my suit, my brown suit. Oh, my God, I don't know what I was thinking. And I'd map out where my interviews were, and I would take my UBD in my handbag, and I'd have my little handwritten, and I'd go this way and that. And in the end, I ended up getting a temp job working for the CEO of the risk assessment team at ABN AMRO Bank. So they were the ones responsible for working out the risk with the Lane Cove Tunnel. Do you remember when that collapsed? Yeah, it was risky. So that was an interesting time to work for them.
Yep.
And you know, it was good. I got a job straight away. My income had tripled. I just could not even understand how that was. Just literally from going point A to point B.
Yep.
And I mean, I was still living in the backpackers for a little while.
Yep.
But eventually I found, I don't even know how I got onto it. Was it Gumtree? I don't know how, I can't remember how I found these share houses, but I went to some really dodgy places. Oh my God, Johnny. Like, one of them was out in Waterloo, and this is Waterloo in the rough part of Waterloo.
Yep.
And Waterloo, what? Almost 20
years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah. So back then, like, all those inner west suburbs hadn't fully gentrified.
No.
Not like what it is now.
There's a pub with a big cabbage on the top of it. I can't remember.
Cabbage.
Yeah, it's a cabbage or a lettuce or whatever. Anyway, there was a house down there, and I was for sure, I got off the bus and I thought, this is not going to end well for me. This is where I die.
Yeah, where am I going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I met this woman, and it wasn't even my own room. It was the entrance to her house that she'd put a sheet across, and she had 3 cats.
Yeah.
And it was $150 a week. And I was like, all right. And I, as a requirement of me living there, I had to go to church with her.
Okay.
I just thought, wow, this is next level. Like,
yep.
In Perth, you just didn't have this, like no one shared, you just didn't do it.
Yep.
It was weird.
Everyone had their own spot.
Yeah, you had your own spot. And if you shared a house, you shared with people that you'd known since you were born, like. I was like, I had to explain it to my friends, and like, what do you mean there was a sheet? Like, what?
So did you stay there?
No, okay. I didn't. So then I eventually found this place in Surrey Hills on Burke Street, 725 Burke Street. And Oscar was the guy who he was the main tenant, I guess.
Yeah.
And then there was 2 other guys. One stayed in his room all the time, and I can't remember the other guy's name now, but he was up in the attic. And Oscar was a graphic designer, artist type guy, and he was a bit of a cool dude.
Yep.
And I was like, the house it was good. It was gross, but it was good. You know, like it was all,
Just dirty.
Yeah, it was dirty.
Typical, right?
It was
People
a big, it was a big old terrace. And German cockroaches of Surrey Hills are just everywhere.
Yeah.
But I thought, oh yeah, that's cool. I met them all and interviewed and everything, and I went away thinking, this is cool. Like I want to be here.
Yep.
And he made me sweat it out for hours and hours. Oh yeah.
Why?
Because this is just what he was like. He was just the smart ass.
Yeah.
And in the end, he called me at like 10 o'clock at night. He's like, yeah, you've got the room. And I was so happy, because what I discovered is that my room that I was sharing in the backpackers, they were all gay guys from Ireland.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and I discovered that
In the evening.
in the evening.
Oh.
In the evening hours.
Wow, you would have seen some things that
Again, Perth girl. I'd never even seen two men holding hands. And I was like, whoa. Okay.
and you were getting the full show.
Yeah. Yep. I just yeah. Yeah. So these guys, they were leaving the backpackers anyway, and it was that night. They were like, come to our leaving do, and I said, okay. Oh no, I'd just moved into the flat. I'd moved into the house. That's right. And they'd asked me to come back for their leaving. We were moving on from Sydney, and I said, sure. We ended up at Stonewall on Oxford Street. I didn't know where I was. And that's when I really discovered where I was, because I went into the bathroom and I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is a next level. So I was drunk. I was so drunk. And I got in a cab and I said to the cab driver, take me to Burke Street. And he literally drove 3 meters up Oxford Street and said, that's Burke Street. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, I live down there.
Did he charge you for it?
No.
Oh, okay. That was nice.
It was funny. It was
nice.
funny. But I now, whenever I see someone in Sydney that you just know
They're
that
lost.
they're not from Sydney. Yeah. Yeah, I remember looking for flats one time during my stay or living in Sydney in the early years. And I had this couple, they were watching me at the inspection, and they were talking amongst themselves and they're laughing, and then one of them came up to me and said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Perth. And they went, oh, we knew it. I said, why? And they said, because you're polite and you smile and you say hello to everybody. People from Sydney don't do that. And I was like, oh, okay. I think I'll take that as a compliment or whatever. But
some people do. You just look like a freak.
Yeah. Well, I think it's changed now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we've got better at it.
Yeah, I think so.
Sydney's got better.
Yeah. I think we all slowed down a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was crazy. Anyway, living with the boys in Surrey Hills was an eye-opener. Living in Surrey Hills, then an eye-opener. I remember walking around Surrey Hills on a Saturday morning, and you'd have to dodge the vomit piles everywhere, and the cockroaches, and the homeless people, and I remember thinking, there's just no way that I would ever live here with children. Not that I was thinking of having kids, but I just thought, oh, you couldn't. And the school, the Burke Street Public School across the road from where I was living, that was closed because there was just no one had kids there.
Yeah, that's right.
Fast forward to when I met Andrew and we'd moved back to Surrey Hills. Isabel started school at Burke Street, and I would never have thought.
That's where you'd end up.
Exactly.
Yeah. But it's changed so much, right?
It changed so much.
Yeah.
So much. I mean, I moved out of the share house with the boys, and I lived on the dodgiest part of Elizabeth Street at the other end, like where Elizabeth and Cleveland meet. And this was with Izzy's dad, and he would do fly in, fly out. And I tell you what, there's just no way that I would ever be there on my own now.
Yeah.
But then I was just completely oblivious to it.
Yeah, you don't think about it.
I think when you're younger, you don't think about it.
Yeah. It's funny, like when hearing you sort of talk about that story. So when Ange and I, we went to the US for a holiday, and when we were in San Francisco, we were trying to find this cafe to go eat at, and so we're going to take the bus. And so what we did, we had Google Maps, so we preloaded the Google Maps on our phone, and then then turned off the data after we got off the Wi-Fi, so that at least you could follow the blue ball. Yeah. Right, and it would show you where you are on the map. Anyway, so we get off this bus, and we've gotten off at the wrong street, like it's the worst street in San Francisco, and there are guys on every corner often offering to sell you drugs. Yep. And so Andrew's friend had said, oh, make sure you don't get off at this stop because that's where all the drug stuff happens and the cops don't go there. Yeah. And so we're walking down this street, and like these two young Asian Australian tourists, and on every corner, like this black guy going, "You want some rocks?" And I'm like, "I'm cool, brother." and Andrew's like holding my arm that little bit tighter. Yeah. I'm like, "Babe, put your handbag on the side where I am. Yeah. And let's just keep walking and be cool about it." And next guy would be like, "No, I'm good, brother." Yeah. Oh, it was wild. Yeah. But
It's funny, like having left Surrey Hills and come back a few times. The people that used to ask for money, or the people that I used to think he's going to be dead tomorrow, still kicking.
Yeah.
It's like they made being a crackhead a bloody career.
Yeah, well, it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like you see a lot of, and not to, I don't say that to disparage anyone in that circumstance. I feel like to get into that situation, you've obviously disconnected enough from society that you don't see any requirement to participate in society, right? But the fact that you could still survive like that for extended periods of time, and I'm not saying that, what's the right way to put it? So, surviving isn't necessarily living, but perhaps to them it might be. I'm not sure. I haven't been in that circumstance, right?
I think, like I understand what you're saying, but it's just, it amazed me, I just, and you'd almost think like, good for them. Good for them that you're still there and you're still, whatever you're doing, you're still making a go of it. And I think, to be fair, a lot of them had got a lot better.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where I think, some people hit that rock bottom, but then they're still able to pull themselves out.
And you've got to wonder what's their story?
Yeah, what's happened to get to that point?
How did you get there?
Yeah, so I think everybody, like, there's a lot of people in that situation that have just, gotten there and probably don't even, haven't really thought about how did this happen, or maybe they're angry at the world, and there's all sorts of reasons, right?
Yeah.
But I think in society, it's a great thing if somebody is in that situation that can actually pull themselves out of it. Like I think that that's like one of the ultimate triumph stories of humankind, right? Like when you've hit this ultimate low point, but you didn't give up.
What I also think is pretty amazing is that the community didn't give up on them either. Because that's obvious. That's how they get through.
Food drives.
Yeah. But people like
Meals on Wheels.
Andrew and I have often, rather than giving money, we'll buy a meal or something like that. And it's just, it's amazing to see that they're still surviving. And I mean, obviously some not so much, but the community is still supporting them without prejudice.
Yeah. So, okay. I want two things. Okay, let's go back one step because I wanted to ask this. When you're in HR, were there any was there ever a time where you made a mistake and you're like, oh shit, I made a really big mistake?
Not so much. Yes and no. Okay, so there was one time when I was actually an office manager at the accounting firm that I made a big mistake. We had two clients with the same name, and the bank rang up and said, we've got a wire transfer here for this name. Can you confirm the account?
You put in the wrong account.
Yeah, and it was like $500,000. I sent it around the world to someone else's account actually in Africa.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was a big whoops.
Yep. So how did you recover from that?
I went and told Joanne and I said, I've done this, and she went, she was so good though. She's like, I can see that you were trying to be helpful. We can get it back. Yeah. But it was a big whoops.
Yeah.
And I didn't lose my job, which was great.
Okay.
But these are the things when you're young and you want to impress people, you think that using your initiative is, I'm going to do this, but like this is just one of those situations where saying, I actually don't know.
Yep.
I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, yes, it's this, that, and the other.
Yep. But on the flip side, there could have only been one and you would have got it right.
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
So it was
a 50-50 chance.
It was a 50-50 chance. I always, and the reason why I like to ask those kinds of questions is because when I think back to when I was going through the early days of my career, right? Like I used to be very hard on myself about getting details wrong. And it probably made me like really almost OCD like with my attention to detail now. Because there was a point where, like at some points I would miss a detail and it'd burn me. Like it shouldn't, but it does, right? Because it's like the worst thing that you could do, and you beat yourself up over it, and you sort of like, such a stupid mistake. Like whether it's like adding a zero or you miss something when you're producing a presentation and things like that. I just, it made me real, and like I see that when I would coach younger staff members to go and say, hey, like if I see a resume and I'd be like, hey, you didn't spell check this word, or you're missing a comma here or a full stop, and like it sounds really nitpicky, but I don't raise it to be a dick. I raise it to actually be like, hey, just so you know, so you're aware, it's good to be on top of these sorts of things, because if you want to exude professionalism, you need to get this level of detail.
Yeah. I think and from the HR side of things, at one point in my career, I used to work for the internal executive recruitment group for BHP Iron Ore. And our job was to hire the executives from around the world, moving them in and out of different mine sites. You know, these people were getting paid in excess of $2 million. And so part of my job was interviewing them and doing their reference checks and dealing and speaking with some pretty big people, people that much like my husband now, you know, like, so I used to get really anxious about my language. What am I saying? Am I using the right words? And so now, you know, what am I typing? I would always go through and proofread, and my superiors would always still pick up on things. Like I will never forget, I wrote time in lieu, but I wrote Lou, L-O-O. And she spun around and said, what the fuck is this? And I went, what do you mean? She's like, time in the loo. You know? And to this day, like I'm so pedantic about grammar. Yep. Andrew will tell you, like
you read, triple check, double check, quadruple check.
And every time he makes an Instagram post, I'll message him and say, you made a grammar error. You need to edit this. And he's like, why? I'm like, it's just my thing. Yeah. It's my thing. Yeah. Like I'm so conscious of it because I used to embarrass myself. Yeah. Oh, just, you know.
You're so self-conscious about it that you can't overlook it now.
Yeah. And I still do it sometimes. Sometimes I feel like I have a stroke. You know, I'm like, oh, why did I say that? You know, sometimes my mouth just, it's not connected to my brain, you know. I'm amazed how sometimes I just don't even get my words out. Like
now it's more like, you know, when you're distracted and I'm just trying to bash together something so I can get it done and then be present with whatever else. And then it's like the kids are going and it's just like, you know, post that. And then it's like, oh shit, it's full of mistakes.
Yeah. Or send an email or you know, you send an email off like a work email and you put, like I've put it double kisses at the end of it. I'm like, oh, why did I do that?
That wasn't for you.
That wasn't for you, you know. But I think it's because when you become a parent, you've got so many other things
on your brain.
Your brain.
Yep. So, question about when you're interviewing these CEOs, did you find any like common characteristics between them? Like, was there something that you?
None of them were fun.
Yep. Okay.
Very stale.
Very stale.
Yeah. When I was working in the mining industry, it was back in the day when it was like these were I don't know how to explain it. Like I started my career in what I would call the gold mining mafia. You know, it was like everybody knew each other.
It's a boys' club.
It was a boys' club, big time.
Yep.
You got it, nail on the head. Yeah, and I think that was just this is again going back to my days of being bullied in school. It was just another period of my life that toughened me up because there was no Me Too back then. They would crack onto you, they would chat to you, they would entertain you. When I interviewed them, you know, they're very condescending and they would patronise me.
Yeah. You want to share an example?
No, just constant like innuendos of you know, here we go. An example of what because we would do these travel packages. We would pay out their homes and the difference in selling their cars and we'd move their cats over and you know, we'd do everything. And I would be asking the questions. Okay, so you've got to sell your house. Who do you live with? What's your wife's name? I don't have a wife, but if you'd like to be her, we can put your name down. You know, stuff like that. Yeah. Like just, you know, and I'm 21 and I'm like, haha. You know,
just try and move on.
Yeah.
This is awkward.
Yeah. I was pretty good
Yeah.
because like I said before,
Yeah.
I was thick-skinned.
Yeah, so you just let it
No,
run.
I mean, I've had there have been issues where, you know, senior management and staff would grab you by the waist and move you to the other side of the photocopier, or, you know, tell you like your legs look great in that skirt, or, you know, come and sit on my desk, or blah 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 blah, and you just laugh it off and be like, oh, you big dirty old bastard, rah. You know, and it was you just got on with your day.
Yeah.
I think I just never really gave it any airtime.
Yeah.
But you know, most of the time they'd humour me. You know, it was very rarely did I get someone who actually was interested in having an intellectual conversation about what they did. They just thought that I did nothing or that I wouldn't understand it. But I understood much more than what they realised.
And being the boys' club, generally when you're interviewing them, they've coming in on the assumption that they're going to get the job anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So the effort factor is probably a bit less because they're just like, oh, well, I know, you know, they already told me to come across and, you know, this is just, I've got to follow the process.
Yeah.
You know, so there isn't really any skin in the game that, you know, hey, you might potentially not get this job.
Yeah.
Right?
I think, you know, a couple of years when I moved on from BHP, I went and worked on for mining contractors. So the Gorgon and Pluto gas projects. And I worked for the contractor that was hired by the main company to do all the work. So I went from executive level recruitment to the blue collar. And the skills I took from the executive level and becoming so thick-skinned with those egotistical men gave me the power to walk into a room of 150 trades and say, right, sit down, shut up, fill out this form. I'm going to run through these questions with you. You do the drug test. If you fail, you're gone.
Yeah.
There is no way that I can give you – because I would have guys that say, oh, I failed. And I'll go, yeah. And they're like, can you just – how do I get rid of it out of my system? I'm like, don't do drugs. And they're like, yeah. But what if I just wait a couple of minutes? I'm like, no, you failed.
Yeah.
You can't have this job.
Yeah.
So I was much more harder. To the point where, you know, managers of different areas were like, I want Cassie to interview because she just didn't take any bullshit.
Yeah, she's blunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people will sometimes say that that's a negative thing, but I think, you know, that transparency is a undervalued skill.
Yeah. I mean, I've never really thought of it as being something that I learned at work. I just thought, because only very recently someone pointed out to me that I can be quite intimidating. And now just sitting here talking to you about it, I realise it's from these days of interviewing people.
That's right. You develop this intensity.
Because I just hammer questions.
On this frequency.
Yeah.
People don't understand that. And they, I get that a lot. Like people would say, oh, why are you so intense? And I wouldn't say that I'm an intense person. I just operate at a specific frequency that, you know, obviously some people have like these really slow peaks and troughs, and mine's probably like vibrating at this really fast pace. And some people just pick up on that and they go, wow, you're a very intense person.
Yeah.
But I would say, rather than saying intense, because I feel like intense has a negative connotation, I would say focused, right?
Yeah.
And so rather than saying blunt, I would say transparent, you know, that I respect you enough as a person that I can tell you honestly what I think. You know, I always talk about this, that, you know, people say, oh, I believe in honesty as a core value. But the thing I don't like about the word honesty is that there's an element of subjectiveness, because a lot of people are told when you're young, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. So I'm not being dishonest. I'm just choosing not to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
But I think you also, like me, have an innate need to know things. Because, I mean, you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't want to know things, you know. And I think my husband always sits with me because he'll tell me a piece of information and I'll go, and then what happened? And then why did this? But what does he want to do with this? And it's like, I didn't ask any of those questions. I'm like, why wouldn't you? Because these would be the first things that come out of my mouth. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I want to know.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, I think, you know, when you're operating on a specific frequency, sometimes it's not to everybody's cup of tea.
Yes.
But that's okay.
It's so good that you said that, because I just found this tattoo the other day that I'm going to get, and it's a cup of tea. It's a teacup, and it says "Not everybody's cup of tea."
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk. How did you get into design, and then we'll swing back to family after.
Okay. So design. So when I met Andrew, so obviously I've come back to Sydney. I'm on my own, and I was working for an executive recruiter called Cat and Crow. And from there, I moved back into internal HR and was a HR manager for a coal mining company over here on the East Coast. And unfortunately, during that time, my personal life was going to shit, and I was leaving as his dad. And I got made redundant, lost my job. It was very hard. It was very hard to do that role because it was such a strong female role. And I was going up to a mine site where we were bringing in miners who specialised in thin coal seam mining from Charleston in the States. And these were like proper rednecks and zero respect for women. And I had very big boots to fill because the girl before me, she was loved by everybody. She was like 5th generation of that mine site. And so I kind of got tossed out of there because I just wasn't the right fit. I was too prissy and, yeah, like I said, couldn't focus. So got made redundant, and then I met Andrew and I was doing a temp role. I was working at the ABC. Doing the recruitment for the fact-checking unit, which is now in place. Yeah, interesting.
The propaganda.
Yeah.
Did I say that?
So that's when I met him. So, you know, I was going through the motions, and then after that, that contract ended, and I took on a role with a company called Human Dynamics, and they were organisational psychology. So I managed their Australian branch of the business, which there wasn't really anybody in it, was just me, and then I would outsource a lot of the stuff. But we did organisational psychology for the likes of Google. And you'd go in and you'd, you know, boost morale, and you'd do all these training courses and blah, blah, blah. And look, I just wasn't loving it. I'd spent so long dealing with people, and this is the downside of HR, is that everybody wants to tell you your problems. And, you know, at the end of the day, you just don't give a fuck about other people's problems because you've heard it all before. And it was just getting boring. It was too much. So we had just bought our first place in Darlinghurst, and it was a complete crackdown when we bought it. Like, couldn't live in it. And we could not believe ourselves that we'd just spent $1 million on this place that we can't even live in, and it smells like old man's wee. And so
that's very specific. Are you sure it was old man or was it cat?
No, it was definite old man. It was definitely like the old man that lived there before. He'd had a heart attack on the toilet and then was revived out the front, and you know it was old man.
Okay, so
can confirm. So anyway, when I met Andrew, he had everything was modern and everything was monotone, and I like old stuff. I'm very much of like, I grew up with beautiful European antiques around me all the time and loved old furniture, and I have always restored furniture myself. My dad's a builder he's not anything by trade, but he can build really well. My mum renovates houses, and she's super handy, and so is my grandmother, and that's just something that I've always been around. So I said to him one day, I have a dream to renovate a Victorian terrace. So we bought one. He's like, okay, let's do it. The same day that he signed the paperwork for the house, I found out I was pregnant with Indigo, and we'd been trying forever because we were like, let's just not have a baby. Let's renovate this house and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so we had quite a tight time frame. We managed to get into that place in 8 weeks, and we just hauled ass. Like, we had to get a builder in, and we had no money, so we did a lot of it ourselves. You know, he and I taking turns painting till 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was big. So we managed to pull this style together of quite a rough industrial. It was a look. It was cool. You know, we exposed brick and we had big industrial pendants, and he and I worked really well together. And then I started getting more and more involved into it, and as I'd had Indy and Human Dynamics were like, look, we want you to come back, and I did, and they were super supportive. You know, Australia and America are 2 countries in the world that don't have paid maternity leave, but they're being Hong Kong based. I had paid maternity leave, which was great. I was able to work from home, but I just again wasn't loving it. And Andrew said to me, he goes, "This house and all the things that you do to it and what you want to do, this is you." The corporate world is not you. And he was doing really well in his career, so it just happened that I started studying design whilst I was at Human Dynamic, and then I got to a point where I was almost finished and Human Dynamics wasn't making any money, and I just said to them, look, I think you need to close this business down.
Yeah, wow.
And they said, okay. And I said, so you're going to make me redundant? And I'm like, okay. So I took a redundancy and I worked with them on doing that, and I finished my degree in design, and I have never been more committed to anything in my life, like aside from family and my husband.
Of course.
This was just next level. And what I will find, what I found out years later, is that I actually have ADHD. So when I get focused on something, the world could be blowing up, and I won't even notice it.
Wait, so what's the difference between ADD and ADHD?
Oh, I don't really know.
Okay.
I mean, you're not hyperactive.
Okay, so but for you can focus or you can't focus?
I can. I can't focus on some things, but some things that I'm really interested in, I can. Then it's obsessive.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Look, I
think we all get that. I mean, I don't know if I've still got it now, but I definitely had it as a kid, which explains a lot of my learning
difficulties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's right.
So, you know, the kids would come home from school, they wouldn't be fed, but I'd be studying my ass off, and I became such a perfectionist in my assignments that I would redo them twice over, and then I'd submit them, and Andrew's be like, "What's wrong? It's going to be fine." I think every assignment I either got 100%, 90%, I got 180%, and I was so gutted. And he's like, "What do you mean 80%? This is amazing." So I graduated with a high distinction, and I was over the moon. Like, I loved it. I loved every bit about it. And I knew that I was doing the right thing because, you know, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt with this. You know, I was so happy about not going into corporate, and we were in a position where it didn't really matter. I didn't have to contribute as much as I did before. And from there, once I finished, I have a great friend who, he's a graphic designer, and he's like, you know, I want you to get some experience designing and blah, blah, blah. So he bought this office in Surrey Hills, and together we went to town and created the most coolest industrial office. Like, excuse me, let me just have some water.
All good. You'll have to send me some pics of this stuff so I can share it as well.
And it's really cool. So we did concrete plaster on the walls and black ceiling, and I got a reclaimed timber flooring that put in a herringbone pattern, and big steel sliding doors. And for the center table, I had this huge table made that had an anvil style base.
Wow. And
copper piping came down from the ceilings like that you see in the bars.
Yep.
And all the computer wires and everything ran through it, and the monitors were attached to the bottom, and I had the tabletop made out of marine ply so that we could have beer pools, and it was rad.
Cool.
So that was really fun.
Yep.
You know, I just remember saying to Andrew one day, I was driving to go source some stuff, and I did all this for free.
Yep.
I didn't get paid for it. I did it because I wanted to, and our friend was like, I just really want you to get the experience of working somewhere. And let me tell you, he was hard work, and he was hard work for a reason.
Yeah.
Because he wanted me to, you know, see what
Ready
it was like. Yeah.
So when you say it was hard work, was he particular about things, or was it
super particular? And when you work for yourself, you don't have hours. You don't have set hours. And this is probably the only downside about what I do, is that I don't switch off and I don't set boundaries, and clients don't have boundaries either.
Yeah.
You know, very rarely do I have someone who says, "Oh no, it's after 5 o'clock, I won't message you."
Yeah.
Like, I do some of my best work after 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or, you know, because you just...
Well, you're trading the flexibility, right? Like, you're not necessarily working straight through from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But, you know, the hours that you may not do during that 9 to 5, you're now having to do after hours.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, I think, you know, for non-corporate style jobs is absolutely fair enough.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're getting this flexibility to spend with our kids and do all these other things that are so important to us. If the trade-off means that we have to start work, you know, at 6 o'clock in the morning or at 8 o'clock in the evening, it's a worthwhile trade-off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The negative?
Yeah.
the more clients you have, the more bosses you've got.
That's true. Yep. And as you get more and more successful, it's a challenge to manage all those expectations, right?
Yeah. And I think, you know, I've got not wild ideas, but I've got ambitions that I really want to push this further and further and further. But at the moment, my number one job is being wife and mum. You know, I've got a little girl who's only 2, and whilst there was a period where my business was really busy during the first round of COVID, we were in a position where I had an au pair, we lived in the country, it was easier to do. Now it's not so much. So, you know, I have to pump the brakes a little bit.
Yep.
But having, you know, had a number of clients that have been hard work and a number of clients that have been amazing, I'm okay with that. You know, it's there if I want it. If I want to push it I could.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I'm just taking it easy.
Yeah. And one of the things I would say to that is that I think that that to me, I admire that, because I know that a lot of women do sacrifice a lot for their kids and things like that. But at the end of the day, you know, it's also about what makes you happy. You got to find that happy balance.
Yeah.
Right? And so I admire that you've gone, yes, I really want to do this, but at this stage, you know, it's really important that I'm there for my kids. And if I have to pump the brakes and put a little hold on the ambition for a short period of time, that will actually pay dividends in terms of your relationship with your kids longer term anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
You know, I had a girlfriend, and when she became mum, she was so adamant on holding on to her career. Like, oh, my career is everything, and I've got to do this, and and I would always say to her, but, you know, just enjoy having a baby. Just enjoy this. Just enjoy. And there have been times in my life where I have wished them to grow up so that I could be focused.
Yeah.
But you know what? I had this epiphany. Not an epiphany, but I was driving back from a client meeting today, and I just went, there is nothing wrong with just wanting to be mum.
Yep. There isn't.
Because you know what? It's actually the most important job that you'll ever have.
Yep. And it's society that makes it seem like it's wrong. And sorry, I'm going to go on this tangent. I have told this story, but it really irks me, right? Like, so a lot of governmental policies, and I don't want to make this political, right? But I always like to bring this one up because I think this speaks to why a lot of women feel this way. So as an example, we talk about, you know, subsidising childcare.
Yeah.
Right? So the government is happy to pay to subsidise childcare for, I guess, to make it easier for parents to have, or as an incentive for parents to have kids, right? But the problem with that is that if you really want to incentivize parents to have kids, you should just be giving them the payment for them to spend as to whatever they want to spend it on. Because if that mum should decide to be a stay-at-home mum, or the dad decides to be a stay-at-home dad, irrespective of whatever's going on, they should be able to do that. But by incentivizing it towards childcare, what you're actually encouraging is that, oh, your child is now in daycare, so you can go and work. And so then we can just tax you and get the money back that we just given you. So it's like, I don't look, I don't know whether the policy was created with that intention in mind, but when you think about it, like the whole incentive behind subsidizing childcare is that now we can get both parents to work and we can tax them, right? Because if the mum's not working, that's 50% of the population that we're not going to tax.
Yeah, I mean, I have a real bugbear with the whole sliding scale of how much one pays for childcare.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what I earn.
Yeah. Collective
income. And also because my husband is not an Australian citizen and yet he pays the most tax. I don't want to sound like a wanker here, but I don't really know how else to say it, but I don't get the assistance from the government.
Yep.
So there's really no incentive for me to go back to work.
Yep.
And this is kind of one of the other things that I go, I have to work that much harder
to cover the cost.
Yep. Because, you know, just because my husband earns well doesn't mean that I can just pay full for, and it doesn't matter, you know, like
right.
It still matters.
Yeah.
It's still money that like is going out. So it's just not a good system.
Yeah.
It's not a good system.
Yeah. It's like, and I know the intention sounds great, but the problem is that, you know, the real world consequences don't necessarily align with the intention.
Yeah.
So anyway, I digress. I don't want to talk too much about politics.
I think the real incentive to get women to come back to work is paid maternity leave. that would get me. That's why I went back to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You're going to support me during one of the biggest times of my life.
Yeah.
I will go back to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as a milestone, like it's one of those, like, and some companies do it really well.
Yeah.
But it's not available to people who work for themselves.
No.
It's those sorts of things that you.
Or give husbands longer than 2 weeks paternity leave.
You don't even get the paternity leave if you earn over a certain threshold anyway.
Exactly.
So
I think, is it Switzerland or somewhere very forward thinking in Europe? They make mum and dad take time off together, and it's paid.
Yep.
To be at home with the family. How incredible.
Yeah. And so, like, that's one of the things. So, just going back to what you're saying about, mums who feel like, their career is such a big thing. One of the things that I realized after, leaving the automotive industry is that, I had a lot of my persona tied up in as to who I was, and that was tied up with who I was in the automotive industry. But you start to think about, okay, is that really who I am, or is it just a part of me? And it's just a part.
It is.
Right? And if you've made that become the most important part of you, well, if one day that is no longer there, you're basically, it's like, being left brokenhearted, right? So the thing that I would say about that is that you got to be careful about what are you investing in? Are you investing into your persona, right, and feeding your ego? Because that's what it is. It's about feeding your ego. Your career is always about, there's an element there that is about your ego, and then if there's the part where you're doing it for the passion and all that, then you could easily stop if you needed to for a split second in time or for a moment in time to do whatever you need to before you go back to it. Because your passions and your hobbies are always going to be there. You still, it's like if you love playing music, you can not touch a piano or a guitar for years, and then the day that you pick it back up, you go, oh wow, I remember why I love this so much, right? So it's the same. I think it's like, it's very similar to that. But I think a lot of people get caught up, in the ego of it. That, hey, if I don't keep pushing, then somebody else is going to take my position. Or
and they also think that, well, if I don't have my career, then what have I got? Oh, you've just got this amazing family. I know it's different for me. Like, I'm really lucky that my husband is in a position where like I can have the flexibility to be mum.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that that's what I want to do forever. Like, Bronte's just started daycare 2 days a week, and let me tell you, I hold on to those 2 days and I love every single minute of them.
Yep.
Because it gives me time to reconnect with me as an adult.
Yeah.
And as a woman and as Cassie, not just mummy.
Yeah. And you need to have that separation as well. You need to have some things for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, there are extremes, where, it's cool to be mum, but also you've got to go and do things for yourself.
Yeah.
The best advice I was ever given was by a psychologist a few years ago, for my husband and I to say, don't look at childcare or babysitters as a cost. Look at it as an investment in your marriage. On a Thursday and a Friday, I'm a much happier person because I have had a break.
Yep.
I've had a break from the monotonous day of
the grind of it.
Yeah. I've been able to go to the bathroom on my own. I've been able to get in the car and go to that appointment and not have anyone interrupt me or throw a tantrum or change a nappy or any of those things. I feel calm and I feel relaxed. Yep. And Andrew can come home and I'm a nice person. Yeah. I'm not saying that I'm not a nice person most of the other days, but it's just it's a good thing. There are times where I'd be at home and my girlfriends would be at work in the office in the city, and I'd see them going on their lunch breaks and then going shopping. And I'm like, oh God, I miss that. I really miss that.
Yeah.
But grass is always greener.
Yeah, and you always want something that you don't have.
Yeah.
Right. And so whenever you have that feeling that you want something, that desire is actually taking you away from being present in the moment and actually enjoying what you do have.
Oh, and we have so many distractions now.
Yeah.
That do take us away from the present moment.
Yep.
And I think, again, this me having my me time today and doing things as an adult and meeting with people, having adult conversations. I had that other epiphany when I was at the park and I went to pick up my phone to Instagram and I went, no, I'm here with my kids. I've had a day off from them.
Yep.
Be here with the kids.
Yep.
You have to, I do find I have to consciously tell myself to put the bloody phone away.
Yeah, it's a big thing in my household too. Yeah.
It's so bad.
Yeah. And my kids, they even say, put your phone away, put your phone away.
Oh, our kids are the same.
Yeah.
You're always on your phone. You're always on your phone.
Yeah. So it is a good reminder You know, sometimes it's bloody annoying when you're trying to type a work email or you're trying to do something that's important and then they're like, put your phone away. It's like, just give me 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, when you work for yourself, you get these ideas that you
Yeah. And you got to take them, you got to put them down.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise they're gone.
Yeah.
And then you get distracted. Like, you know, I could go and try and think I'm going to go to the bathroom, get distracted by boiling the kettle.
Oh, always.
And then be like, oh, what was I doing?
Yeah. And then
I got to go to the bathroom.
next thing you know, the peelers in the fridge and the chargers in the wash basket. And I do stuff like that all the time.
All right. Let's, I wanted to circle back to something actually before we talk family stuff. You know, let's circle back to when you were a kid and you were like, you know, I'm fine. And then you mentioned that obviously it all hit you like a freight train later on in life. Okay. When did that happen?
So I would say it had been happening for many years, on and off. And generally, if I had had a little bit too much to drink, things would come out. And I was emotional, and I would start talking about certain things, and you wouldn't really understand. And it happened a few times when I met Andrew, and it got really bad to a point where he said that one day you would glass over, and I would be having a conversation with you, and I wouldn't know who I was talking to, and I wouldn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah.
So there was a lot in and around that, but I probably won't go into too much detail.
Of course.
As a result, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and dissociative disorder and anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's when we found out about the ADHD.
Okay.
So for me, I had some triggers. My triggers were, you're not worthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love you.
Mm-hmm.
Or not feeling loved or not feeling accepted. And these are all things that stem back to being a kid and being bullied, my parents divorcing. Who am I going to live with? I'm going to live with my mum, or I'm going to live with my dad, or no, they don't want me to live with them, so I'm going to go live with my grandmother. And then mum's failed relationships and they didn't want me, and, you know, so on and so forth. And it did. It blew up one day. And I won't go into too much detail about it, but I literally I lost my mind. I had a really, and I have no recollection of it at all. My brain snapped. I was having an argument.
With Andrew? Or?
Yeah, Andrew and I were having just a normal argument.
Yep.
And he said, I don't want this. And that was my trigger. And I blacked out, lost it.
Yep.
And that's when we discovered that these were my things, you know.
Because him saying, I don't want this, was like, you're not worthy.
Yep.
Yeah, it started to go through that cycle for you.
And so this psychiatrist managed to pinpoint it all with me and say, your feeling of self-worthlessness has been with you from a very young age.
Yep.
And this is just something that built up and built up and built up and built up to one day I popped. I imploded on myself, and I nearly lost the best thing that ever happened to me, being my husband and my family.
Yeah.
And when there were signs along the way, but we didn't take any notice. You know, just thought, oh, maybe, you know, she'll be fine. And there were feelings of melancholy, and there were bouts of depression, and you know, it was just, you could be right, you just got to go to the gym or do this or do that, brush under the rug. But having a diagnosis and having someone say to you, this is why you feel this way.
Yeah, forced you to confront it.
Yeah. And it took me 2 years to get it all out and really work on it. Yeah. And now I know I am worth it.
Yeah.
I am loved. And if we have an argument, he's not leaving.
Yeah.
You know, like it was such a big thing. And I talk about mental health a lot. And I'm pretty open about it because, and I'm open with my girls, you know, I suffered from an eating disorder as a result of all of this quietly for almost 20 years.
Wow.
I had bulimia. And people will say, oh, yeah, you know, we remember when Cassie was really thin and blah, 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 you know, I was.
And they never put two and two together?
Well, some did.
Okay.
Some did. I mean, I was in a rough relationship and just hated myself for so long. And bulimia is actually, it's a symptom of depression.
Yep.
And it was a form of punishment that I would put on myself.
You're punishing yourself.
Yep. All linked together.
Yep. So then when you go through that process of trying to unpack all of this, did obviously, you know, having professional help is one factor.
Yeah, a lot of professional help, not just one person. I had a psychologist, I had a psychiatrist, I had my GP, I had my closest family.
Yep.
Like, you have to put it all out there.
Yep. And I guess when did you start to, because I would imagine it's like going into a very deep tunnel here. Like, how far in before you started to then feel like I'm actually making some progress and I realised that, hey, I can change some of this stuff?
Pretty much the first time the psychiatrist sat me down and said, this is what you have.
And it just clicked for you?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was like, what do you mean? This is a real thing. Like, because I felt like I didn't have control of my body. You know, and unfortunately, it was masked by alcohol. And not that I was drinking in excess. I wasn't an alcoholic, and I'm not an alcoholic. It was just one of those things that I would have a little bit too much to drink.
Yep.
And then
it'd be like a Jekyll and Hyde thing.
And then Andrew would see that, and he wouldn't want me to get to that point.
Yep.
So he'd say no, and that's when it would click.
Okay.
You know, and there was only a handful of incidences, but they were getting progressively worse.
Yeah.
And
so he was like, hey, before you self-destruct, we need to work on this.
And it was that I did some hypnotherapy with this psychiatrist, and because my anxiety was so bad to the point where I couldn't drive.
So what were you having anxiety over?
Everything.
Really?
Yeah. It was bad. I've got this, my mum has a driving phobia.
Yeah.
And it's caused by anxiety, and obviously there's a lot of stuff that my mum hasn't unpacked, and I've started to do it as well. But one of my biggest fears when driving is, you know, when you're on a motorway and there's the on-ramps and the cars coming on, they're going to collide straight into me.
Yeah.
So I would have times where I'd be doing that drive from Bowral to Sydney, and I'd go, ugh.
Yeah, wow.
Because I'd think a car was going to smash into the side of me. So I couldn't drive for a little while. Yeah. I look, I've been on medication on and off throughout my life. This was the one time that I didn't take medication. I mean, there was some Valium in there, but that was needed.
Yeah. Do you find that the medication helped?
No, it was awful.
Okay, so from that, and the reason why I asked this, so my mum has mental illness, and you know it was very tough for her, obviously, and then and you know the straw that broke the camel's back for her was she had a car accident. I think a teenager, like a high school student or something, his tennis ball or her tennis ball went across the road, and they went chasing it across a busy road, and he or she has hit the windscreen, and obviously that's, you know, pretty traumatic. And then my parents were going through a tough time, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back for her. And so as a result of that, then she started to get very paranoid and anxious, and then feeling like, you know, the world was against her, kind of a thing. And you know, for me at that time, I would have been maybe 16, you know, when that happened. And, you know, you don't really know how to offer advice about that to your mum, you know, like she's your mum at the end of the day. She's the one that's generally offering you the advice, right?
Yeah.
And because of the way that my parents' relationship was, it's not like my dad was really helping that much. And then my brother was probably overseas already at that time because he was studying abroad. So, you know, here I was in, you know, year 11 or 12 and trying to deal with this, you know, sort of, I felt like by myself. And so when I finished high school, I said to my mum, look, mum, you know, I think you need a break, you know, and how about you go overseas and go spend some time with family and do all that. And then my mum wouldn't come back. You know, she went to Singapore and Malaysia, and then was just basically, when her visa would expire in Singapore, going to Malaysia for a day or so, and then come back, and then the visa would be renewed for another 2-3 months or whatever. And the time when she came back, when she left, you know, 2 full suitcases, all the stuff, came back with nothing, just the clothes on her back. And when I saw her, like, my heart broke. She was really dark because she'd been living on the streets for the last couple of weeks because even my auntie kicked her out because she just, wouldn't like listen or like would just be cleaning things. And so, it's been a journey for me to try and understand mental health, from that perspective, because I'm always thinking about my mum and how what is the best way to help her and how to, what is the best approach for her to try and get better. And, so the first time she went into hospital, they put her on medication and she came out and seemed like things were fine, right? But then the problem was that when she was no longer required to take the medication, then over a period of time, then we're back in again.
Yeah.
And so it was like this cycle, right? So
because I think medication really only works when you're doing all of the things that need to go with it.
Yeah. So you got to be doing that self-work and really sort of,
You've got to have your psychologist. You've got to talk. You've got to do the talk. You can't just take the medication. And I think that when I first met Andrew, I was on really high dose medication, and it wasn't me. I would zone out, and coming off it was 3 of the hardest weeks ever. I was so violently ill, but.
Wow. So just withdrawals from it?
Yeah. Yep. I've since found out that the medication I was on was rubbish.
Okay.
But it was mostly for my anxiety that I was on it.
Yep.
But it, it wasn't working. It was making me worse.
Yep.
And I'd go to the GP and I'd say, this is not working. And he'd say, just up the dose.
Yep.
But in the end, I was on 150 milligrams Yep. Bad.
Yep.
So I don't often think it's the right way to go, but today there are so many different options that sometimes you just do need a little bit of a help. But you've got to make sure that you're not using it as a Band-Aid.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to actually want to fix it.
Identify that you've got an issue. What is it? Sometimes with anxiety you can't. Like some people they're just anxious and there's nothing you can do about that. And maybe you've just got to take medication every day for the rest of your life. And that's okay.
Yeah. From
the other side of the coin, like if there's depression involved in it, then that's the tricky part. And sometimes you just need it to give you that boost to get out of bed, But look, there's just so many things. Like now we're reading more about diet and how diet affects your mood and certain foods. I mean, we grew up in a society that if you have a problem, you just pour yourself a drink and you'll be right.
Yeah. We want the silver bullet.
Yeah.
We don't want to do all the things that seem boring and non-essential. The main things I think that everybody can actually, that we think is, I think most people think of these as 1%ers, which is, diet, exercise and sleep are actually the 80%ers.
Yeah.
And the difficult thing about the 80%er is you need to do it every single day. If you fuck off for one day and have a rubbish diet, have rubbish sleep and gone out partying, you are going to feel it.
Yeah, trust me, mate. We went to the Gold Coast last weekend and I have felt like shit all week. But here we are. It's Thursday and I'm starting to feel good again.
You're coming round.
But it is. It's all of those things. Yeah. Sleep is so important. Yeah. Sleep and diet, definitely. Yeah. There were times where I would just stop eating for days and I'd become a rake, and then your blood sugar is so bad that your anxiety's through the roof. You're a machine. Your body is a machine. You've got to fuel it.
Yep.
You can't just live off adrenaline.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's I think they're the most common things that we take for granted. And I think for all the professionals, if you're not supplementing vitamin D or getting sunlight, like.
How much happier was everybody today?
Yeah. Right? It's just one of those things.
It is. Yeah.
I actually got my blood work done just last week. And then the doctor was like, oh, your vitamin D levels are really high. Like I'm over 100 or something like that.
How?
Huh? Oh, because I take vitamin D supplements.
Oh, right. Okay.
So not in this weather, but yeah, like I make a conscious effort to.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, you probably need to lay off a little bit. And she's like, you could probably not take any vitamin D for the next 4 months or something. And I was like, oh,
wow.
Really? Okay. Well, I might pull it back a little bit, but it won't stop me from taking it. Well, I don't want to go excessive, but at least, I know where I'm at. And then she's like, oh, your cholesterol's high. And I'm like, yeah, it would be. And she's like, why? And I'm like, oh, it's diet. And she's like, why? What are you eating? And I'm like, lots of meat. I eat steak every day. And
green apples. Yeah. Green apples are good for, they do. I had high cholesterol when I was about 20.
Yep.
As a side effect of my eating disorder. And the doctor told me to eat green apples and it worked.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There you go.
Tip Noted.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's get off this heavy topic.
Yeah.
We went really heavy there.
Yeah, we did.
So let's lighten it up a bit. Well, not too light. I want to talk about kids.
Yep.
So can we talk about, the kids and I guess, what was that like for you becoming a mum?
Look, having my first daughter, I thought I was Wonder Woman.
Yep.
It was so empowering. I'm really, really lucky and very grateful for this body of mine that has been able to produce 3 beautiful, healthy girls and have labour without drugs, complications, anything.
Yep. You are Superwoman.
But I don't I don't want to sound like a wanker or anything, but like that is an amazing feat because modern medicine interferes so much, and I think I never push my beliefs on anybody. But something I am like secretly passionate about is active labour and getting women up and moving and getting rid of this whole like you go in and you have drugs and you put your legs in the stirrups and then you do nothing, Like I just think based on how I felt and how empowered I felt as a woman to be able to do that and then to scoop my kids up into my arms and like it was I can't even explain it.
Yeah.
And the rush of hormones and like that happy hormone is just incredible.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, I love babies. I do love them. I don't really like being pregnant so much, but but that's linked in with my body issues, I've spent my whole life controlling my body, and then when you're pregnant, there's no control.
Whatever your hormones do.
That's it. But, I think having Isabel was the best thing I ever did, They're just, we were not in a good relationship with her dad and I, but I was adamant that I was having this child and she was coming and there was not this sounds terrible, but I know most parents will go through this where they at one point go, have I really made the right choice here, becoming a parent? With Izzy, I never, ever thought that. With any of my girls, it's tough and they push you, but, it's still the best job in the world.
Yeah. So I guess for you, when that relationship obviously wasn't going the right direction, what was your thought process like? How did you rationalize that? You just like...
So he was of the frame of mind that when you had a child with someone, that was it. It doesn't matter what the state of the relationship was. You just continued on. And I, with my history, was like, oh, no. If I'm not happy, I'm out.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to leave. And in the end, I just got to the point where I was like, well, I'm done here.
Yeah.
Izzy was 2 and I know there's something better for us, and I would rather her have 2 happy parents separate than 2 miserable parents together.
Yep.
And it's funny because my family were like, oh, come back to Perth. And I just felt I wasn't ready to leave Sydney. I just couldn't. And I'll be honest, like my life sucked after that. It was really hard. I lost my job. The government wouldn't support me. That Centrelink made a huge error on my file and I wasn't getting any help anywhere. And then I was going through a separation. So I had zero money. I was literally living off like $2 a day. And you'd be surprised what you can make on $2 because...
Lots of instant noodles.
Yeah. But it was just, it was tough. And then the reason why I couldn't leave Sydney showed up in the form of my husband. And we met on Tinder and I was literally on it for 28 seconds.
No way.
I'd given up on men. I was like,
28 seconds. So you got on and then what? You've obviously
swiped
a couple and
then
there was a match?
There was a match and it was him.
Wow.
And I'd sworn, like I literally had sworn off men, and my girlfriend was like, you've got to get on this app, you'll love it. And I was like, no, they're assholes and I'm done. And then I met this guy and 3 months later we're engaged.
Yep.
7 months later we're married.
Yep.
Inside of a year we bought a house and we're pregnant with our first child.
Yeah, wow. It's a whirlwind, right?
It was.
But at the same time, I feel like, a lot of people say when you know, right?
Yeah.
And only if you've experienced that do you say that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've thought I've known before.
Yep.
But I really knew this time.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's not to say that there have been times in our relationship where I haven't known. You know, in the beginning we thought, we don't fight, we don't do this, we don't do that. But then life happens. Things change. You know, you grow up. Certain things happen in your careers, or, you know, you have a baby or anything. The dynamics change. And then there's a whole myriad of other things that you've got to face together.
Yep.
And then, you know, throw in a mental health diagnosis there, and we've learnt a lot about each other.
One of the things that I love about how he talks about you, he's like, oh, now she's my partner in crime, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's so important that you're in, like, when you're in a great relationship, you know it's a great relationship because you're actually working together, right?
Yeah.
Because you got the same, even though your individual goals might be different, you really do want the best for that other person.
Yep.
Right? And so, you know, sometimes it's a bit of timing, it's a bit of opportunity, like, you know, finding that right time to meet that right person is one thing. And then also being ready as an individual, you know, to make that commitment and do those things is also important as well. But then, you know, that's the easy part. You know, getting together is the easy part. It's actually trying to stay together is the hard part, right? Like, that's where the real work is.
And I think given his history and my history, you know, failed relationships and whatnot, you know, by the time we've met each other, we're like, here's a list of what I will put up with, and here's a list of what I won't put up. But that list changes over years. But, you know, I think the beauty about our relationship is that we're very much the yin and yang, you know. I know where I need to compliment him, and he knows where he needs to compliment me.
Yep.
And we don't ever fight for that top position, you know. Whatever works.
Yeah, that's where his skills are. This is where your skills are, and
I mean, we totally, you know, we compromise, but it's not even a compromise. You know, like, it's not a negative. The compromising for each other is never a negative. You do it because you love that person, and, you know, we used to have this thing where when we first met, we started not really sleeping very well, and we weren't living together, and we'd have this same hours throughout the night that we'd pick up our phones and talk to each other. And it was normally around 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock or whatever. And, you know, things that have stayed consistent in our relationship is that we will always say goodnight to each other. You know, Andrew's always travelled, and there's always a good night text. There's always a good morning text. Any flight he goes on, he always tells me he loves me. Throughout the day, our thing is we send each other a message that says, hey, baby, I love you. These things are what bind us together. And I think now we've got to such a point where he can be further than 6 hours away, and I literally feel that. I feel that in my heart. And that's when, you know, like, we're cut from the same cloth. We're bound together in so many ways now that you don't even have to use words. You know what the other person is thinking. And I'm going to get all emotional thinking about it. But yeah, he is. He literally is. He's my soulmate.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, when it came to Andrew meeting your first daughter,
yes,
how did that go?
Well, it was interesting. So I'd never introduced Isabel to anyone that I was dating when I was on my own. And I'd literally just won, not full custody, but majority custody with Isabel living with me. And he look, I'm going to give the very G-rated version, where I invited him to dinner, and he stayed the night, and the next morning he'd met Isabel, but the next morning I'll never forget, Izzy had this thing for climbing into my bed, and we're in bed. And, you know, there's no clothes on, and he's cuddling me and blah, 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 and he reaches over, and I've never seen a man jump so high, because Izzy is tucked in and I'm asleep, like I'm sort of asleep. Izzy's tucked in on my side, and he grabs her little arm, and he freaked out. Like, this guy is, you know, he's 27, 28, and he's in the gym every day, and he's just doesn't have much to do with kids. And he's like, oh my God, you know,
What is this?
What is this? Small human. So then he made a deal with Izzy because he couldn't deal with her keep coming into the bedroom. And
Yeah.
also she'd just do this like super creepy thing where she'd just stand over the bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning and her hair was like, oh, she'd look super scary. So he said to her, if you stay in your own bed for 2 weeks, I'll buy you a scooter.
Wow.
She's never been in our bed since.
Oh, wow. He bribed her.
Yeah, he 100% bribed her. But let me tell you, she was hard work for him. She really put him through the ringer.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's a gorgeous guy, so he's never had a woman refuse him. And she was 100% just like, nah. He would go and pick her up from daycare sometimes, and she wouldn't even make eye contact with him. She'd just say, "Where's mum?"
Oh,
and
wow.
he'd say, "Well, I have to pick you up." And she goes, "I don't want you picking me up." Like,
Now, was that reminiscent of you at all?
yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I was that girl.
Yep. You
Yeah.
made it hard.
I made it so hard. Yep, 100%. But you know what? Now Izzy was, she was 3. She doesn't remember
Oh, wow. Okay.
prior to Andrew.
Yep.
She's called him dad since
then.
yeah, like pretty much after we moved in together. Like when we moved in only after a few short weeks.
Yep.
She said to me one day walking to school, "I don't know what to call Andrew." And I said, "What do you mean? You can call him Andrew." She goes, "I think I want to call him Dad."
That's
and I
nice.
said, "You can call him Dad."
Wow.
And I'll never forget the first time she did it. I gave him a heads up that
Yeah.
it was coming, and she did it. And then she like giggled and was like, "Dad,"
That's
you
nice.
know, it was
That's
good.
really heartwarming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have the best
That would
relationship.
have melted Andrew's heart too.
Yeah. That look, there's no difference. He doesn't treat them any different, and
Yeah.
we don't treat them any different from each other. You
Yeah.
know, the only difference is that Izzy's not here every second weekend. But she's very much a McCulloch daughter. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. I think on that note, that is a wonderful way to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So unless you have anything you want to ask me or you want to talk about anything else.
Oh, I don't think so. I think I'm kind of sick of hearing my own voice, to be honest.
It's a weird feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's good. It's really not like I really like having the headphones on because, when else do you get to actually dial into a conversation, have no distractions and really you're almost processing your own thoughts at the same time.
That's one thing I will say. Speaking with you tonight has actually managed to link a few things together for me that I've never really thought about before. Like I've thought about everything in chapters.
Yep.
This chapter, this chapter, this chapter. But what you've made me realise is
It's all connected.
Yeah.
It is. Life is connected and so are people. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. If people want to find you, obviously, if interior design work and things like that, where should they go?
I'm in the process of redoing everything.
Ooh, okay.
Just to freshen it up. But Cass McCulloch Design is my Instagram. And there will be a new website coming shortly.
Cool.
But yeah.
All right. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Johnny. Bye.